Where's the lucky leprechaun?
He didn't have a ride.
No!
Yeah, he didn't have a ride.
Why did dumbass pick his fault?
It's a nice excuse for I don't want to go to school.
Where in your park are you?
Yo, can y'all get a room, please?
I can make that later, bro. Y'all get a room, please? Extra Marcelo Ayala over there.
Me?
Good thing? Hey, remind me to get in class.
Fuck out. Oh, they pointed at me.
All right. Today, we are covering a decent amount of material. Okay? There will be strange names. There will be some strange words that you have to learn.
What do you mean strange?
And there are words from Arabic that you have to learn. And on top of it, you'll have, people's names, which you won't be as familiar with and what have you. There will be a few dates, okay? So, we finished off, we talked about the death of Muhammad, okay? In what year? 632. Okay? And then we spent a little bit of time yesterday in class talking about what it takes to be an effective emperor. Okay? Now, lessons on how to be an effective emperor are applicable across really any type of government. As an emperor, you get a little bit more leeway to kill who you want and to do what you want. But, even rulers and democracies often have that leeway as well if they pay off the right people. Okay? So, all that said, okay, we know Muhammad in 622, he gets forced out of Mecca, right? He's trying to preach and talk about Islam and monotheism and the belief in the one God, and the people in Mecca who are polytheistic aren't too down with it. And so he moves from Mecca to Medina. That event is called the
Hijra.
The Hijra. The Hijra marks what?
The zero in the Muslim.
First day of the Muslim calendar. Right? So I believe it's year one. I don't think they had a zero.
Oh,
But I'm not positive.
my bad.
No, that's right. I said year one, but I am not positive. I would actually have to look that up and see. But I believe it marks year one. And excuse me, 8 years later, him and his boys return to Mecca, largely peacefully, and by this point, Muhammad is in charge of a political and a religious structure that comes in and takes over Mecca. Okay? He takes over Mecca, he cleans the Kaaba out of all of their polytheistic idolatry, and makes it so that the Kaaba is solely for the purpose of worship to Allah. Okay? Now, in 632, Muhammad dies. Okay? And Muhammad did not leave an heir or a spare heir to take over for him. He had children, but he never really said that they were taken over. And so there opens up this debate as to who succeeds Muhammad. Okay? And the answer to this question leads us to a schism in Islam. Okay? Now, before we get there, realize that really quickly, what becomes what's called a caliphate, which is the same thing as an empire, but it's an Arabic word, okay? It actually becomes the Rashid Caliphate. These guys expand Islam really, really, really fast. And then the second caliphate that replaces the Rashidun Caliphate does it even more so. So like in a really short matter of time, Islam dominates the planet. And they're the largest empire out. They don't dominate the whole planet, but you'll see the maps of them. So, there. Muhammad dies, okay? While Muhammad was alive, basically the Islamic Empire was kind of just stuck right down here. You got Mecca, Medina, most of the rest of this is desert. They got parts down here of Yemen, and a little bit of the tip over there of Oman. Okay? As soon as he dies though, his initial successors very quickly capture the rest of the blue territory. So northern Egypt and pretty much the rest of the Middle East. Okay? And they do so in about 16 years. Okay? So from about 634 to 650, they defeat not only the Byzantine armies, but the Persian armies as well. Okay? Taking over all that land. For 16 years, they grew really fast. Now, here's where we get into some of the interesting names. The Rashidun Caliphate is comprised of 4 caliphs. Okay? Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. Uthman and Ali. 4 caliphs. Okay? The Rashidun Caliphate lasted 29 years.
Wait, what are like the sections called of the caliphate? What is that? Like you see how it's like broken up?
They're just names.
Oh.
What are you asking?
Like I thought there's multiple caliphates, right?
They are multiple caliphs. This is
So-
all the Rashidun Caliphate. These are the caliphs underneath the Rashidun
What's a
Caliphate.
caliph?
Is the equivalent of an emperor.
Oh, okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay? So you have the word caliph and you have the word caliphate, okay? Which would be like emperor and empire, or king and kingdom.
Do you have to remember like the Arabic versions of those names?
No. You will need to know the names and the order in which they happen. You don't even need to know their specific years. Okay? Because ultimately, the years are meaningless. What is important is who came first, second, third, fourth, and some aspects of what they did, but we'll talk about what's important and what's not. Okay? So, Abu Bakr was essentially one of the first converts to Islam, became a good friend of Muhammad's. They were relatively the same age. And after Muhammad's death, the people who made up what you call the elders of Islam, essentially, the people who had been around the longest, got together and agreed that Abu Bakr would become the first caliph to succeed Muhammad. Now, okay, so one thing that you should learn about certainly the Arab world, but many Islamic countries in general, and other parts of the world, is that a lot of people in this world don't do things like we do here in North America. Okay? They operate differently. For example, if you were doing business in the Muslim world, okay, people, particularly in North America, have this habit of wanting to get right into business. Let's sit down, let's discuss what I'm selling you, and you decide if you're going to buy it. In the Islamic world, you do that, and your meeting will be over in 10 minutes, and they'll probably never talk to you again. Okay? What they want to do is they want to get a feeling for you as a person before they're actually willing to do business with you. And so a business meeting might very well start off with tea and asking about your family. How is your family? How is your wife? How are your kids? What are they doing? And things like that. And you'll make these like sort of, you might call it a chat or these pleasantries, but until you've established a personal relationship with somebody, they won't have a professional relationship with you. Okay? Just a different style of doing business. Okay? In addition, one thing that you'll actually see in the Arab world, and in many aspects of the Islamic world, is as opposed to, say Elijah and I both have ideas, and we're trying to get you guys to agree with them. And we come here and we present our ideas. Generally, we're looking for you to either vote for him or vote for me. There's a winner and a loser. And that's often how we do things. In the Islamic world, they actually employ a negotiating style called a shura. S-H-U-R-A, Ashura. And Ashura is a consultative body. It's where you get a bunch of group of people together, and as opposed to Elijah and I sitting there trying to win, we talk about what our ideas are, we see where we have things in common, and if we don't have things in common, we talk about, well, you know, could you change this or change that, and could we agree on this or that, to try and reach consensus or agreement. Okay? And so, again, very different type of style. In fact, after the World Trade Centers came down and the U.S. attacked Afghanistan, one of the first issues that the U.S. had to figure out was, okay, well, who broke this country? Who's going to lead it? Okay? And the Afghanis employed something that they have used for thousands of years called a Loya Jirga. You don't need to know that name. But a Loya Jirga is a shura. And so they actually had a shura. And so you had, U.S. Special Forces in these shuras working with the Afghanis to try and figure out who they thought should take over and how and who should rule and lead and everything else. And that was how we ended up with the first Afghani president after the fall. Okay? So this idea of a shura is not something that God used once to pick Abu Bakr to succeed Muhammad. It is still used today. It is still used pretty regularly throughout the Arab and throughout the Muslim world. Okay, so all of that said, we're going to briefly talk about what were the. I'm going to go back to it in 2 seconds. Okay? So, briefly, what happened under the Rashidun Caliphate? Okay? So, we talked about how quickly they expanded their territory. Okay? And if you remember, as I said last time, they did not go in there and force people to convert. Okay? People were allowed to continue to practice their own specific religion. Under the third caliph, Uthman, they standardized the Quran and they issued it and they never changed it again. The reason I bring up that point is because when we talk about historical reliability of texts or things like that, right, we talked about the Tripitaka, right, it was a collection of Buddha's, sayings and everything else, and I think it was 2 months after Buddha died, a group of Buddhists got together and they made the Buddhist teachings permanent. They didn't change them again, they didn't interpret them again, that was it. Under Islam, right, we know that Muhammad was meditating in the cave and he received these divine messages through the angel
Gabriel. Jibril
or Gabriel, yeah. And, because Muhammad was illiterate, his scribe immediately wrote them down. And same with Muhammad's interpretations of these, his hadith. Okay? And within, it comes out to like 15 or 20 years after Muhammad dies, Uthman finalizes the Quran, and it doesn't get interpreted anymore. Now, what's interesting is that the Bible actually does not follow this. The Bible's a lot messier in terms of how it was put together and how often it was changed. And in fact, it was changed even as late as the 1400s in the King James Bible. And by changed, I mean you get significant rewriting of things. Now, you can still pull up older copies of the Bible and go back and find what was actually said. But by change, I don't mean that someone's going in there and changing the stories, but if you guys all study a language, a word in one language could have multiple meanings in another one, and which definition you choose can lead to very different conclusions, okay? Now, there are other changes as well, but I mean, that is one. So you'll see scholars, for example, want to go try and find, copies of the Bible in Aramaic, which was the language it was written in, to try and get the most accurate interpretations that they can. Okay. The Rashiduns also introduced, because they read Mr. Fox's How to Be an Emperor slides, a bureaucracy. Okay. They did what Hammurabi and Justinian did and attempted to standardize and codify their laws, okay? And they introduced what is called Sharia, which is Islamic law. Sharia, S-H-A-R-I-A-H, Sharia. S-H-A-R-I-A-H, Sharia. That's Islamic law, okay? And they also decided that they needed a good tax system to pay for all their military campaigns. And one of the things that they introduced, and no bad jokes, Mr. Segura from the Peanut Gallery, they introduced jizya. J-I-Z-Y-A, it's up there. Okay? So they introduced the jizya tax, which is essentially a tax on non-Muslims, okay? And, you know, this allowed people to continue to practice their religion, and they just sort of paid a small fee for it, okay? So,
How would
under, what?
How would they know if someone's not actually Muslim? Like, couldn't they just like lie?
I'm sure there were probably pretty easy ways to figure it out. See which temple or synagogue or church they go to.
Yeah.
You can find out if they go to the local mosque. You could ask them. You could see if they know the Shahada. You know, things like that.
Okay.
But how they actually administer that, I couldn't tell you.
Alright.
So, the Russian Caliphate lasts 29 years, and this is pretty much what they accomplished. Okay? Can I go back up to the other side now? Alright. So, we had 4 caliphs under the Rashidun Caliphate: Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. Abu Bakr was close in age to Muhammad, and he was only caliph for 2 years. I think he died at 61. That looks about right.
Yeah.
And so whatever. I mean, that was it. Now, this dispute within the hierarchy of the Rashidun Caliphate continues to fester. So it's who should succeed the caliph. Okay? You had a group of people who believed that the Shura, this consultative body, should get together and name a successor. But you had a vocal minority who believed that the successor should be a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad, so that there would be a hereditary transfer of power between people related to Muhammad and not. Okay? Now, let's throw in a little bit of intrigue. After Abu Bakr, the next 3 caliphs in the Rashidun Caliphate all died. Not only did they die, they get assassinated.
How did
They're all killed off.
how did
right?
Abu Bakr die?
Abu Bakr died at
And he just died
old
at age.
Like, you know, they don't actually ever really say.
Everybody else knows.
Okay?
He died.
So the next 3 all get assassinated. Okay? Now, Umar, not too much about. Alright? He was what he was. He got assassinated by a radical. Whether there was a bigger plot or something there, we don't really know. Uthman was generally considered a pretty effective caliph and was pretty wide regarded. Okay? One of the things that he did was he, you know, we talked about creating a bureaucracy, and he would put into place governors into different major cities. And he put a governor into Damascus. Damascus is in Syria today, okay? And it was a pretty major city even back then. And the dude's name was Muawiyah. Spelling purposes
It's gone.
is right here. Muawiyah. Okay? And Muawiyah ended up being a pretty good governor as well. You know, he,
What was the city called?
What?
What was the city called?
Damascus.
Damascus.
In fact, it's right here.
Which is now Syria, correct?
What?
Which is now Syria?
Which is modern day Syria.
It is, yeah, it's the capital of Syria, yes. In fact, I don't know if it was this block or not, somebody asked me the oldest city in the world. Apparently it's Damascus. Old. Okay? So, okay, so Uthman appoints Muawiyah. Uthman gets assassinated. Okay? The Shura appoints Ali to be the next caliph. Ali is a descendant, is related to Muhammad. And so that makes the people who think that the caliph should be related to Muhammad quite happy. But Muawiyah kind of thought there was like foul play and was not happy at the appointment of Ali. And Muawiyah actually refuses to recognize Ali as the next caliph. Okay? And so Muawiyah does not agree to recognize him, and Ali and Muawiyah have a battle. It's called the Battle of Siffin. The Battle of Siffin. It's 657 CE. Okay? And nobody wins. It's a draw.
Will they kill each other?
Huh?
They kill each other?
No, nobody won. Draw.
How do you draw when fighting someone?
You don't get the upper advantage, and both sides
They just both,
tactically retreat back to their sides, and no one gets the better win.
like,
However, because Muawiyah is, essentially supposed to be reporting into Ali, and so are his soldiers, Ali looks weak. Because Ali can't actually be the governor or his own troops. Okay? So Ali looks weak as a result of the Battle of Siffin. And then sometime thereafter, Ali gets assassinated while praying. So, he gets assassinated while praying in a mosque. Now, if you were one of these people who thought that, the caliph should be a descendant of Muhammad, and your boy finally, after 3 other caliphs, finally gets in there, and now he gets off, and not only does he get off to the mosque, right? That's some hardcore gangster shit right there, right? You'd think you see the mafia doing that or something. You're kind of pissed. And not only that, but you got this fucking upstart governor in Damascus who's like, yeah, he wasn't legit anyways. So, this group is a little bit pissed. Now, Muawiyah has an answer for all this. As soon as Ali is assassinated, Muawiyah says,
what's the name?
guess what, guys?
I'll take your
I'll take your
You know how to
place.
spell it?
I'm the next caliph.
Alright.
Okay? And he gets people to agree. Shortly after that, not only does he do that, he then moves the capital of the Islamic Empire from Mecca to Damascus, renames the empire the Umayyad Empire, which I will show you in a second. To Damascus, the Umayyad Empire, or Caliphate, okay? The Umayyad Caliphate. And he says, oh yeah, guess what? We don't need to worry about secession anymore because my kids will be named heir to take over from me after I'm gone.
So he said,
Boys got cojones.
Got balls.
he said y'all don't get lineage, right? So he gets in a feud with Ali, and takes it, and then says, never mind that, it's my turn.
Yep,
Yeah.
pretty much. So yeah, Muawiyah's got cojones. Like, he gets this shit set up and he takes it over and hostile take over. What? Why?
No, like, what was the point then?
Money, power. What else? I mean, you see this be repeated in history all the time. Damascus.
Money power.
stage is set. We got these two groups, and then two groups, the Shur people, and then the descendants of Muhammad people. They're sort of disagreeing, bunch of assassinations, and then
You're talking about, you're saying
God
groups
says,
like,
fuck all of you. I'm doing it my way.
when you're saying groups, you mean like people that said that the ruler should be like descendants of Muhammad, and the other ones just like chosen by that other group of people? Alright.
Yeah. So now, where does this come back? Okay. Well, today, these two groups actually become a schism in Islam, and they form two different versions of Islam. One is called Sunni, and one is called Shia.
Which one's which?
Okay. And I got it up here already. Sunni and Shia. Sunni make up about 80% of the world's Muslims. Shia are about 20% of the world's Muslims. Shia are those who believe that there should be a direct hereditary line for rulers to the Prophet Muhammad. Shia. And as you'll see in a minute, yeah. And as you will see in a minute, okay, the Sunni, not only they're the majority, but they, the central religious site for Sunnis is going to be the Kaaba, and therefore Saudi Arabia is essentially the center of Sunni theology. Cool? And for a variety of different historical reasons, the Shia end up in Iran. And Iran is the primary sponsor of Shia Muslims. And as I pointed out to you when we were looking at the maps, even today, Saudi Arabia and Iran are constantly jockeying or fighting for power in the region. They don't go fighting directly. They have engaged in essentially a Cold War, right? Where they try and sneak each other, and they often do it through other parties. And so when we were talking about the Houthi, the bonus question from the Middle East, the Houthi are actually backed by Iran. Normally, when they're not trying to bomb cargo ships, normally they're trying to bomb the government in Yemen, who is Sunni and backed by Saudi Arabia. When you go into Palestine, one of the long-standing terrorist groups in Palestine is Hamas. And Hamas is a Sunni group supported by Saudi Arabia. However, in southern Lebanon, you have Hezbollah, which has transformed itself into an international terrorist organization, and it is backed by Iran.
Which one Prophet Muhammad? Like,
But it is almost impossible today to understand aspects of Middle Eastern politics unless you understand the difference between Sunni and Shia. If we're talking about, for example, even looking at Israel and Palestine, you need to understand the different motivations of Iran and Saudi Arabia. And to do that, you have to understand the differences between Shia and Sunni.
Can you repeat which one thought that all successors should be from
Shia.
Shia?
So, hereditary line of Muhammad, Shia, Iran. All right, now, what?
I gotta go at
For what? Get notes, a lot covered today. Okay, now, Ali's son was a bit pissed. His name was Hussein. Muawiyah's son, Yazid, wasn't upset, but Hussein attempts to attack Yazid, right?
Why?
Because they want to take back
son?
control
Who's
and
Muawiyah's
power.
Hussein?
And who did his father Ali? Well, Yazid's father Muawiyah. And so they end up having this battle in 680 CE called the Battle of Karbala in 680 CE. And unfortunately for Hussein, he got spanked. And I don't mean spanked. Yazid went out there and slaughtered every single person who fought.
How?
He's just better.
Take a sword and
Like, how the fuck did he kill all of them though?
well, you capture him and then you just kill him.
Oh.
Oh, I
Oh, really?
I thought you meant he went full on like 20v1 or some shit.
Well, this is one army versus another, and it's not 1v1.
I thought you meant he single-handedly killed them all.
Too many video games. Battle of Karbala. K-A-R. E-A-L-A. Okay. And that battle, the Battle of Karbala, essentially marks the official schism between Sunni and Shia. Had there been an opportunity for them to come back after this?
Which one's Muawiyah's son?
Because there's no
What's
mercy
Muawiyah's
granted
son's
on the
name?
battlefield. They went out there and they slaughtered all them
You
mofos.
said Hussein started the battle.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
So Hussein is always right now. I think Hussein.
What's Muawiyah's son's name?
Yazid.
Don't go to the next slide, please.
Okay? And so, at this point, Shias, okay, kind of disappear and wander for a little bit because they got their asses handed to them. They don't really have a home anymore. They don't really have a ruler anymore, etc., etc. And Yazid goes back to Damascus and keeps on ruling and, you know, taking over new lands and running the Umayyad Caliphate. Okay? So, the Battle of Karbala, one way or another, marks the official schism in Islam between Sunni and Shia. It is such a significant event that even today, okay, you can go to Iran each year and they have a festival called Ashura where they actually do reenactments of the Battle of Karbala.
What's the festival called?
Ashura. I'll show it to you another slide or two. A-S-H-U-R-A. So, and it's not to celebrate the Battle of Karbala, it's to commiserate. It's to feel the loss of what the Sunni did to the Shia and how they treated them. And people literally dress up in period clothing and take out the swords and they do like battlefield reenactments of the Battle of Karbala. So it's actually a major celebration in Iran, and probably in Iraq too. They're going to be celebrated in Paris. Yeah. No, both of those guys are already lost. I don't think Sunnis actually celebrate that. Oh, you do celebrate? Oh, yeah. Sunnis do celebrate. Yeah, go so. Yeah. What do you do for it? A holy day? Okay, it's a holy day for Sunnis as well.
Okay.
Okay? Alright, so, we good?
Oh, yeah.
Not
Good?
yet, not yet.
Okay. Cool. So, those are the things you gotta know. Right? There's a bunch of, there's at least two battles there. Battle of Siffin, Battle of Karbala, there's a bunch of dates. We gotta know which caliphs make up the Rashidun Caliphate, and we gotta know a bit about Muawiyah. Alright?
Definitely on it.
So,
Is the next midterm cumulative to the last
no,
midterm?
it'll be from the last midterm.
Alright, cool.
So like I said, Muawiyah claims the caliphate, moves it to Damascus, and names his heirs as the successors. Okay? Now, to consolidate his power. He continues to update the bureaucracy. He too paid attention to Fox's class on how to be an emperor. Okay? I know. I got magic. Goes throughout time. Okay? Alright. So, initially, the debate between Sunni and Shia was primarily about succession. Who takes over? What happens over the next couple hundred years here is that intellectually and religiously, the two religions begin to diverge.
Intellectually, how intellectual?
So, for example, there's areas of where Shias rule and they have their own interpretation of Sharia law,
Yeah.
and they end up with sort of creating festivals or ways of honoring Ali and Fatima, Muhammad's daughter. And so, while the Quran is still the Quran, there are still aspects of it that you have to interpret or understand, and you begin to get a divergence of how they do so. And so even today, Shias still rever and hold with a high degree of respect anybody who is a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. And there are many of them still out there. So if you go to Iran today, they will be individuals who will generally wear a black turban. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they are worshipped with reverence, they are treated with respect in society. Now, we go to what, 2:30?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Should looking.
we're gonna pause, we're gonna go
Play Blook It.
to Tyler's presentation.
We're gonna play some Look It after, right? I think that's the wrong class. Yeah. I think I have pretty good notes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So the festival is the holy day?
For the Sunni, that's what Amadou said. But for the Shias, it's like they like reenact the battle of yeah.
I'm not stopping you.
Aztecs, Incas, Mayans. What's going to be on the slide is how
Can I go get water? Bugs. Can I go get water quick?
Yeah, where were they? The religions, where they are today, the achievements, and then the pictures of it. So the Mayans would develop the Mayan region, which is mostly southeastern Mexico. The civilization existed from ancient times to the early modern period, which is like give or take like in the 1500s. The Mayans was a Mesoamerican civilization that developed independently over several millennia, beginning in the pre-classic period, which is 2000 BCE. So early days of the Aztec, right? So the Aztecs was a nomadic tribe known as Mexica, which is what they'd rather be called instead of the Aztecs, which is settled in the Valley of Mexico around the 1300s. They established their capital, which is Tenochtitlan,
Tenochtitlan.
On an island named Texcoco, which became one of the largest cities in the world at the time. And the Aztec triple alliance. The Spanish were the conqueror. The Spanish were driven by greed, like the Spanish conquistador called Cortez, right? And he at the time met with the chief, Moctezuma, the ruler at the time, and he presented him with gold, but really like what he really wanted was to like take them over. You mean? Alright. But then however though, he lost, right? So whatever he lost, so he went back. He went back to Spanish at the time, and then Spanish. They came back to seize a year later, and that's with the help of the Texcoco, because like the Aztecs and Texcoco had falling out, right? And the Aztecs surrendered. They lost the battle, and Cortez built present-day Mexico City over and this, the picture here is the Pyramid of the Sun, which is one of the pyramids. There's some of the largest of its kind in the Americas. It was mainly used for religious ceremonies. Incas. Where were they? The Incas came from Peruvian mountains in the 13th century in 1532. They expanded to cover most of the Pacific coast and the Indian Islands, the Spanish conquest. So these guys too were also taken over by the Spanish. The Spanish conquest began in 1552 with Francisco Pizarro overthrowing the Inca leader at the time, Atahualpa, and conquering Peru. 3 years later, he founded the new capital city of Lima, which still exists today. And the Civil War, also called the War of the Two Brothers, which was fought in 1529 between two half-brothers, Huaspar and Atahualpa, sons of the Inca Empire, Huayna Capac. And they basically fought for like who could succeed their father's death. He died of a sickness. And the war ended in 1559. For the religions, were polytheistic, God, which is called Inte, or Inti, yeah. But they didn't, and the Inca didn't have a specific codex, so they didn't have like the Bible or something like that. They had a complex system like keeping like stories, records, and stuff in strings. The Aztecs were highly polytheistic. They believed in a lot of gods, mainly related to like daily life, war, and agriculture. The Aztec codices were mainly pictures, so like, there wasn't a lot of words to like in these pictures, and different information, a lot of calendars, festivals, rituals, important leaders, and trade routes. And the written language of these codices was the classic Nahuatl. The Mayans were also polytheistic, so all of the polytheistic. They worship many gods related to nature, the sun, moon, rain, and maize, which is also corn. The Popol, which is their codex, is written in Niche, their Mayan language. So I don't know who the author was. So I just put by an unknown author or authors. In 1554, 1558, it utilizes some of the Latin alphabet in Spanish for orthography. Alright, where are they today? Right. The Mayan people inhabit the Yucatan Peninsula and the islands of Guatemala. The
Quechua. Quechua.
the Quechua and the Aymara peoples, who are the direct descendants of the Incas, continue to live in the Andean regions, speaking people, which are the Aztecs, they currently reside in Mexico City and central southern Mexico. So their achievements, the Mayans made the concept of zero, which is like which has a placeholder, and they also made 2 calendars running in parallel, each with a purpose. The first one, the Tzolk'in, was a sacred calendar with 260 days. It was like a wheel of fortune spinning through 20 days with each repeated 13 times. And the second was called the Hab, which was secular calendar with 365 days. It was like our calendar with 18 months of 12 days each, plus the final period of 5 days called the Whales. Aztecs had like something called the Chinampas, which are like artificial islands built on lakes and wetlands like the rocks. The Aztecs created the agricultural system in Mesoamerica, which leads today to Mexico. They also made like terrace farming on steep slopes of the Andes, which maximized arable land and preserved soil. And these are the pictures, which is this one for Inca, which is a site Asian American, ancient Inca ruins located 50 miles from northeast Cuzco, Peru, in the Cordillera de Cordoba. Lions have this right here called the Chicken Vista. And the location of the location city is located in Yucatan, eastern Mexico. And the Aztecs, I couldn't find like anything specific. Basically, what I found was like this right here looked almost exactly like the picture I found. So I grabbed their calendar. But they had like the Aztecs took dating system of based on Mayans
Questions?
One quick thing, like you said, I don't like this slide. So you said the Aztecs took inspiration from the Mayans, like their calendar basically. Is there like any other things that they took inspiration of the Mayans from, or is there anything like these three related to that, or anything, or is that just a lot?
the Mayans, the Aztecs took inspiration from the culture as well. But like race but like they're both not like they weren't in like in the same region, so like, they couldn't use like their agriculture representation. Alright, cool.
So Tyler, remember when we learned about ancient India's achievements? So apparently they had made like the concept of zero or like nothing. So you're saying the Mayans, they're the ones that actually had like zero as a placeholder. So like you know how in 10 it's like 1 0.